Hey everyone, Chris here. So, when you're a spellcaster, it's always worth it to look at available spells that add to your defenses, especially when they don't require concentration. Well, Mirror Image fits in that category, so is it worth taking and casting with your spellcaster? Well, let's start with the spell statistics. It's a second level spell, 1 action casting time, and it lasts 1 minute. Creates 3 illusory duplicates of your character in your space. For the duration, the duplicates move with you, and it's impossible to track which image is real. You can dismiss the duplicates as an action, which I've literally never seen any player do ever. Each time a creature targets you with an attack, you roll a d20 to determine whether the attack instead targets one of your duplicates. If you have 3 duplicates, you need to roll a 6 or higher for the attack to target a duplicate. If you have 2, it's an 8 or higher, and if you have 1, it's an 11 or higher. The armor class of a duplicate is 10 plus your dexterity modifier, and if the duplicate is hit by the attack, it is automatically destroyed. It ignores all other damage and effects. The spell ends when all 3 duplicates are destroyed. A creature is unaffected by the spell if it can't see, if it relies on senses other than sight, such as blind sight, or if it can perceive illusions as false, as with true sight. Mirror Image is on the Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard spell lists. It's also gained by Trickery Domain Clerics, Circle of the Land Druids with the Coast option, or Artificer Armorers. So, a common misconception of this spell is that it's going to turn 3 hits into misses. And that is possible, but it's also possible that attacks that would have missed you anyways remove the images. Since the armor class of a duplicate is 10 plus your dexterity modifier, if you have any other adjustments to your armor class at all, you should expect duplicates to have a lower armor class than your caster. So some attacks that would destroy a duplicate may have missed you anyways if they had targeted your character. Duplicates also can't benefit from things like the shield spell. How I prefer to think about it is this. Mirror Image turns 3 potential hits into misses. The actual hits it prevents could be 3, 2, 1, or even 0. So, is there a way to get even more out of this spell? Yes, I'm going to show you an optimization technique for Mirror Image. This is the Sentinel feat. Normally I consider this feat fairly good, depending on the kind of build you're going for. But there's one part of this feat that has a very tasty interaction with the Mirror Image spell. So let's say we have the Sentinel feat, and we're in melee with a giant along with another party member. So what we would be hoping is that the giant attacks our ally, because this sets up the 3rd bullet point right here, where if a creature within 5 feet of us makes a weapon attack against a target other than us, we can use our reaction to make a weapon attack against that creature. However, let's say the giant attacks our character. Well, we're not going to be able to use our Sentinel feat unless we have Mirror Image. Note the wording here for Mirror Image. Specifically, right here, it says, each time a creature targets you with an attack during the spell's duration, roll a d20 to determine whether the attack instead targets one of your duplicates. So the attack is no longer targeting us, it is targeting a duplicate. So that creature is making an attack against a target other than us. Doesn't say anything about the target needing to be a creature, so our images qualify for this 3rd bullet. So the giant attacks us, we roll the d20, and it targets an image instead. And now we get our reaction attack through Sentinel. This can be especially nice if our weapon happens to be something like an upcast Shadow Blade that can deliver really nice damage. Or even better, our character is an Arcane Trickster. Mirror Image is an illusion spell, so it's one of the spells that an Arcane Trickster can choose without restriction. So we cast Mirror Image, we move into melee with a giant, and when it attacks us, it probably ends up switching its target to an image, and then Sentinel comes in, which gives us a reaction attack. And as long as sneak attack qualifies, such as having this ally right here, we're delivering really nice damage with that attack. When you are playing a rogue, if you can deliver sneak attacks both during your turn and with a reaction between turns, it has a huge impact on your damage output. So if you really want to optimize the Mirror Image spell, consider the Sentinel feat. But what if we don't have the Sentinel feat? Well, first let's look at the downsides of this spell. It is 1 action to cast, but it only lasts a minute. That means in order to cast this effectively outside of combat, you pretty much need to know that you're about to enter a combat. Like, you know the enemy's on the other side of that door, so you do your prep, you open the door, that kind of thing. Now, if you're a wizard and you're super high level, you might get around this with Spell Mastery, where you can potentially continually cast Mirror Image outside of combat, so it's up whether you know you're heading into a combat or not. Repeatedly casting 1 minute duration spells outside of combat is something that should be discussed with your table, as different players and DMs are going to have different opinions. What I usually do in cases like these, it comes up with the Shillelagh cantrip too, is if you're exploring a dungeon or something where you might expect combat to pop up at any time, then I'm generally fine with it. But I think there's no way anyone is recasting a spell every waking minute of their life, so the situation is something I consider when making a ruling. In combat, one action means we're usually taking an entire round to set it up. With something like Quicken Spell, you can get a cantrip off in the same turn, but you won't be able to cast a leveled spell due to the bonus action casting rule. Mirror Image also doesn't protect you against several kinds of damage. Anything that doesn't require a to-hit roll ignores your mirror images, so Magic Missile, for example, is going to ignore the duplicates and just hit your caster. A silver lining, though, is you could get hit with something like a Fireball, and although the images don't protect you, you also don't lose them. And since they don't require concentration, you won't need to worry about making that concentration saving throw. Creatures with Blind Sight and True Sight will not be affected by your mirror images. And worse than that, things like Magical Darkness or even a Fog Cloud, which prevent enemies from seeing, also prevent the mirror images from working. And if you are playing a low-level character, a second-level spell might be a pretty hefty resource to spend for a spell that's not guaranteed to do anything at all. So when do you actually want to take Mirror Image, and more importantly, when do you want to cast it? Well, I'm going to start with an example that is admittedly extreme. So let's say you're a high level, let's say Blade Singer, and you figure it's Shadowblade time and you wade into melee with a Marut. You're Blade Singing, so that's +5 to armor class. You have Mage Armor, that's another +3. You have an 18 Dexterity, 4 more. Maybe you got a Ring of Protection, 1 more, and a Cloak of Protection as well, another 1 more. So that's an AC of 24 or 29 with the shield spell. That's pretty good. You cast your high-level Shadowblade for big damage, and in you go. The Marut goes and makes 2 unerring slam attacks. They both automatically hit for 120 total force damage. That 29 armor class didn't do you much good, and there is a good chance you just went unconscious. Though maybe you have a couple hit points left, in which case you have to make 2 DC 30 concentration saves to keep the Shadowblade. With Blade Song and Resilient Constitution and Warcaster and your Cloak and your Ring and say a 16 Constitution, you maybe have a +10 saving throw. So you're basically going to need a nat 20 on both saving throws or you're going to fail. If you have Mirror Image up though, there is an extremely good chance, around 94%, that one of those attacks hits an image, and nearly even odds that both hit mirror images and you take 0 damage, with a second level spell as your only resource spent. I think that might be worth it. Obviously, that is an extreme example, but if you've played high level D&D, you will know that unless your build is extremely focused on armor class, builds that are normally good at avoiding being hit, like Blade Singers, have extremely slow armor class scaling after their initial setup. Basically, you got magic items and increases to dexterity and intelligence, which are every 4 levels, and that's only if you're not taking feats instead, which, let's face it, you very likely are. And there's no scaling of the shield or mage armor spells, but creatures have their hit bonuses scaling constantly, so you're going from those +4s and +5s to hit at low level, which never seem to hit you, to +17s and 18s at high level, which almost never seem to miss. Armor class, normally, with our usual plans like Half-Blade and Shield or Blade Singing, just don't keep up, and they become less and less valuable. Mirror Image, though, those D20 rolls never change. What does change, though, are the number of creatures with True Sight and Blind Sight. Enhanced Vision is pretty common at high challenge ratings, so although your Mirror Image will work against a Marut, it won't work against, say, an Ancient Red Dragon. But when the creature relies on regular sight or dark vision, Mirror Image grows in value just as the resource cost of a second level spell reduces in value. Another time the value of Mirror Image increases is if you're under a condition that makes you an easy target. So let's say you're paralyzed or even unconscious and at 0 hit points. If a creature wanted to, say, finish you off, they're likely going to have to deal with your mirror images first. That's a really nice line of defense. I definitely don't consider Mirror Image to be the right spell for every combat. The second level spell slot can be a big investment, depending on your spellcasting levels, and the one action casting time can be a huge investment. In order to justify that, you need to get a pretty big benefit, and that is going to depend on whether your enemies are relying on vision, whether you're the one being targeted by attacks, and what chance those attacks have of hitting you in the first place. Might also depend on how many hit points you currently have. I don't think I would rank Mirror Image as one of the best defensive spells in the game. I mean, for its level, the best defensive spell in the game is almost certainly the Shield spell. And if I'm choosing between preparing the Shield spell or Mirror Image, I'm preparing Shield. When I do prepare Mirror Image is when I'm not faced with that kind of choice. I'll prepare both Shield and Mirror Image if I can. I mean, Mirror Image may save me multiple castings of Shield, and it keeps my reaction free for other things in those cases as well. The way Mirror Image shines is that because it doesn't use concentration or reactions, it can be part of a layered defense of a defensively minded spellcaster. Now let's say I'm a sorcerer, and I don't have a subclass that provides a good number of extra spells known. I may simply not have that kind of luxury, and the decision could literally be between knowing the Shield spell or the Mirror Image spell, and in that case I'm definitely not taking Mirror Image. But with certain sorcerer subclasses, or a wizard, which has more generous preparations, I think of Mirror Image as more of a specialized tool. It's like putting vice grips in your toolbox. For a lot of projects, you're not going to need them at all. But for some projects, they will make the task way easier. I'm putting a crescent wrench in that toolbox 100% of the time, but if I have the room, the vice grips are worth it. To conclude, I generally recommend the Mirror Image spell, as I am a proponent of layering spell defenses when you can, and once Mirror Image is up, it's not using your concentration or reactions, and in some cases, it will prevent hits against your character. If you have the Sentinel feat, I definitely recommend Mirror Image, especially if you're an arcane trickster. It's just a really nice combination. However, I do not consider it an essential spell, and if your spell selections are tight, you should stick to the essentials. Hopefully that analysis of Mirror Image is of value to you when you're determining whether to take this spell. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.